To thrive in education, you must accept these 7 realities. 7. My goal as a teacher doing this here YouTube thing is to create content that helps struggling teachers succeed in the classroom, providing exit strategy to those that want to leave, and warn newcomers not in education yet, but want to teach about the challenging reality existing right in front of them. Mr. Tom Reingold, a commenter on one of my videos, offered me an assignment in no disrespectful way, but yet proposing, you describe the problem well, but do you have any proposed solutions? And he's right. Do I have any proposed solutions? It's one thing to get on here, getting onto a soapbox, other teachers making why I quit teaching videos, and always talking about teaching is this, teaching is that, problems here, problems there. But what solutions am I offering? This channel originally served to be a mixed bag of things until I switched to focus solely on teaching, being a resource channel, offering tutorials for assignments and more. But unfortunately, the nature of the classroom was coming more and more into question, soon to spill into my own career experience with violence and blatant disrespect. I knew it was time to use my platform to reveal that these evil things are really happening. But I want to remain true to form. I want to show both good and bad of the profession, and today is a mix of both. If you plan on teaching or are teaching but struggling, it's because you haven't accepted these 7 hard-hitting realities about the educational profession. If you want to thrive today, you have to accept these truths. Delete whatever expectations you think education should be like and work with where you're at. This video today is going to help you navigate our new reality. Before we get into this, shameless plug, I have my own email list, my own mailing list called The Teacher Show, where you can join in on all the fun and excitement on content that more than likely I probably can't share on YouTube because I don't want to jeopardize my current profession. And there are some heavier things that we need to talk about that just can't be publicized. I also have a book coming out called Trouble in Paradise, and it's subtitled Anecdotes and Analysis That Are Causing Teachers to Leave the Classroom Today. So if you want to check that out and be the first to get that when it arrives, go ahead and join The Teacher Show. Enjoy the show. I guess that's the best way to say it. Now back to our program. Y'all ready for this? Truth number 1. Kids into your room on a dopamine withdrawal. Thanks to technology raising students, kids are overstimulated, and when they come into your classroom, they're going through withdrawals. Now, it's a hard reality to accept. It definitely was for me, but it's one I had to accept nonetheless. Needless to say, we wrestle not against poor behavior, but against low attention stamina, low ability to focus, and lots of squirrel moments, squirrel, which influences bad behavior. It's your dry activity and lesson versus their access to stimulation where you're hard. I just sacrificed personal time to prepare this here lesson overnight, just cannot compete. Sadly, I'm a person completely against fun for the student without fun being identified appropriately. You have your admin, your superiors want to walk into your class and say to themselves in a Mickey Mouse tone, "Oh boy, look at them go." The kids are up moving around, but they're seats and having loads of fun while learning. This is what teaching is all about. But don't let the smoke screen fool you. Ask the most bashful kid what they're learning, and they'll meet you with a buck-tooth smile. I don't know. The challenge for the teacher is to merge 2 unlikely worlds of learning and entertainment to achieve a likely outcome of closing achievement gaps while raising test performance. And hopefully the students will have learned how to use the teachings in real life as well. A reality within truth number 1 also is that students don't want to hear you talk. And I spoke about this before in previous videos. Forget that whole stupidity of the sage on the stage, God on the side. Get tired of hearing that. They don't want to see no God either. Here's your lesson. Here's your assignment. I'm here if you need me. The best question to ask in today's time is, what are the students going to do? That is a better question than listening to somebody repeat sage on the stage, God on the side. Like, what? If this is not the question you are striving to answer, then what's going to happen is you will have a whole lot of idle time that will plant seeds of chaos. Admin who are totally stuck on this amphitheater performance will instruct you not to give any busy work. But I'm personally of the opinion that busy work is better than no work at all. I've come to learn that you can automate the class if you allow students to create assignments for you. And all you need to do is provide the framework. There was one week that I actually experimented with this notion, and I told the students that the printer is down and they'll have to write this entire article from the screen. After writing this very verbose article from the screen, then I had the students create their own questions. And from there, we took a vote on which ones were the best questions. And of course, I did some final proofreading, and I had the students create an assignment from that standpoint. The questions that did make the final cut, I actually put the students' initials next to them so they can actually be familiar and take a guess at whose questions made it and whose didn't. Those who knew that their questions made it, they was able to recognize their initials. And it got the kids to have some buy-in into the assignment. By doing this, a typical one-day assignment turned into a week-long task. And I gotta tell you, I'm all here for it. That week was the least amount of stress and pressure to provide an activity I've ever experienced. And why? Because rather than rack my brain on what the students needed to do, I simply created the field for them to create their learning resources for themselves. As teachers, we have to truly move into a facilitator role. The students' brains should be hurting, not ours. Technology is not the only thing that can be automated. If the right systems are implemented, then the classroom can be automated as well. Now, student-led learning doesn't have to be a fairy tale. It's very attainable as a reality. I'm telling you, I've automated so many moments in my classroom this year, playing mind tricks on the students in the form of challenges, daring them to one-up me that they can do a better job or of teaching than I could, when in reality, that's the plan all along. The students, they just didn't know it. As inappropriate as this is to say, you have to be the cocaine, or better said, provide the table with lines ready to be hit. Teachers today have to make learning as addictive as the slot machine dopamine hits we get scrolling the infinity of social media feeds. All right, truth number 2, teach skills, not politics. If I have to tell you, as the viewer watching this, and you're a teacher, to keep politics out the classroom, we got a problem. But still, easier said than done for most, but very doable for a large percentage. On this channel, the most that I've talked about regarding political reference is the Republican senator in my video examining the 4-day school week and how it's a good thing or a bad thing. And the reference couldn't be helped because the political policies do influence how these scheduling practices exist, why they exist. Unfortunately, left and right-wing banner has just slithered its way into our daily lives thanks to the general internet, and more so due to social media, especially when I never used to be concerned with politics in my 20s or early 30s. There's a video by a YouTuber called Moon called How the Internet Destroyed Critical Thinking, and in that video he talks about echo chambers and herd mentality. Let's get at a listen. It's already been established in discourse that herd thinking is everywhere on the modern internet. Just one piece of information, regardless whether it's true or false, can set thousands of people down the warpath. And lots of it has to do with a lack of consequences. Anonymity is powerful, and people say whatever they want based on an emotional, immediate reaction. But a larger part of it is due to the experience of being caught up in one of these online waves. If you have ever been packed into a large crowd, then you'll know it's a unique experience. You can find yourself getting sucked in an undershed of shared emotions. Each individual moment is chaotic and confusing. Rumors spread like wildfire. Someone might think they overheard something and spread it around. And once it catches on, it can change the crowd's mood almost instantly. What's key is how the crowd becomes a single entity which overshadows the individual people that are a part of it. People become united by these underlying emotions, whether they're happiness, joy, fear, or even anger. It's a powerful, motivating, and almost tribal experience which would doubtlessly predispose us to get caught up in by our social biology. It will be useful for a tribe to offer the same things, amplify their feelings together when they get threatened. It makes them unified and ready for action. What's important about crowds and mobs, though, is that they're stupid. One rumor or spark can set them off and make people do things that they would never do alone. Normal people turn into monsters, so caught up in the waves of emotions that they do unthinkable things. Social media takes these powerful mechanisms and warps them for its own gain. As Moon said, politics are killing the classroom in ways we didn't see coming before. When you combine political think tanking with social media's capability to warp reality, what you have are people ready to bend perceptions to their morbid will. This is what's happening in the classroom. Some teachers have been absorbed by these think tanks, eventually operating their classrooms to indoctrinate, making sure students know and align with their personal ideologies rather than instill in them skills that can realistically build the individual and thus society as a whole in the end game. Remember that YouTuber Moon says this consistent emotional outrage is making people dumber, and I tend to agree with this sentiment. Political bickering is an appeal to emotions which does not have any place in a school, but we see teachers every day in metaphorical clown makeup ready to make sure young minds are dysfunctionally obsessed with this identity messaging that they leave the classroom inept and disadvantaged by the basic fundamentals of reading, writing, and mathematics. Teachers have to focus on making kids understand micro and macro skills across all subjects and how they work in concert to be effective citizens later. Now, I don't know about others, but I'm exhausted from students being grade levels behind, feeling overwhelmed, and choosing a life of behavioral stupidity because they feel insecure about their current intelligence levels. Truth number 3. No one is coming to save you. Sorry to tell you this, guys, but no one's coming to give you a life raft. Not your admin, not the kids' parents, hell, not even your own parents. New teachers enter this profession expecting some level of support, and experienced educators are still foolishly waiting on a handout. The nerve of them. Here's a newsflash, ladies and gentlemen. Jesus and self-support is going to be your best support. When I entered the profession almost a decade ago, I was like every other fresh fish out the water, thinking that I was going to avoid many pitfalls because I had a mentor in my corner. Believe it or not, I failed my rookie year, and I'm glad about it because it taught me the importance of 2 words: initiative and accountability. My very first year as a high school teacher found me waiting on help rather than seeking answers for myself. If things went wrong, I wanted to shift responsibility off myself onto a superior to avoid reaping any negative consequences or backlash. The type of student you are facing today is calling for you to pass their little test. They expect to put you through the ringer, hoping to cave you at the knees and shed so many tears so Tupac can make a sequel about it. They want to see how tough you are. And you know what? It's no different than a guy having to prove himself to a woman he's trying to date in a relationship. For many students, it's a necessity. It's a survival mechanism, a protective mechanism, if you will. Man, most of these kids have had so many bad deals in their life that these moral tests are required to make sure that when times are hard, you won't fold. And many students do not have a moral compass, so they have to borrow yours. Higher professionals don't train their newbies on this, but if no one tells you, then Uncle Sean right here is going to tell you education is all about having a tough skin. For me, my faith in Jesus Christ plays a huge role in this, and here's how. Now, first, it does not require me going around the school, sprinkling holy water on foreheads and rubbing red paint over doorways, or the most accusatory part, quoting scriptures every time I just open my mouth. What my biblical faith means and how I operate is that it's just my foundation on how I react and respond to certain situations. How I behave and interact towards people is all guided by the word of God. One scripture I learned how to stand on is let every man look to his own things, but let every man also look to the things of others. And that comes out of Philippians chapter 2, verse 4. Now, while I have to get my literal classroom together, I often take a lot of time helping other teachers with theirs, advising newer teachers, and giving more of my time to ensure other people are thriving. Now, over time, this has garnered me many rewards, and one of them is a promotion to replacing a teacher that had smaller class sizes. It was something I didn't expect, but scripture builds on top of another, as I desire not to seek credit for it either, but do those things to please the Lord. Let's take a look at Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 through 2, as it states the following. Take heed that ye do not do your alms before men, to be seen of them. Otherwise ye have no reward of your Father which is in heaven. Therefore, when thou doest thine alms, do not sound a trumpet before thee, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. Alms in this scripture is defined in Greek, meaning how we give our time, exercise our virtue, etc. When you combine these two scriptures, it charges me to do things for people that will please the Lord and not seeking my own recognition and glory. I'm not seeking immediate feedback or attaboys. I have no expectations that the person I'm doing things for is going to return any favors either. So I give all of my time and say thank you to the Lord, and I just keep it moving. That's what I mean by my faith being a foundation, and I know and where and who my reward is coming from. But a lot of people do not have this and are dying of thirst in the desert, waiting on the drip of acknowledgement from their principal about how good of a job they are doing. Now, I always encourage people to run their classroom as a business. The students are your customers, but you have a system and operation for how your business should run. Too many teachers, old and new, expect admin to run their classroom. And I find this to usually be a result of that teacher's classroom management being complete and utter trash. They don't have the right systems, so their business operations go off the rails. Another key aspect in business people need is the ability to build wonderful relationships with the students, and this requires removing you from your comfort zone. From my experience, students love a teacher willing to embarrass themselves and be in the trenches with them. You're getting on their level, but not stooping to their level if that distinction is clear enough for you. This principle is one key element for kids to respect you. Another is not letting them see you sweat. And we talked about that earlier when discussing students testing you. And we have student respect, good relationships built, classroom systems to operate your educational business. You won't need any admin support. I've been dependent on admin in years, and I haven't had to make parent phone calls unless it was a necessity, such as school incidents or emergencies, but my class is successful without them. How's that possible? These kids are terrible, and administration needs to be suspending them, expelling them, the whole enchilada. Maybe, but that's not reliable. What is reliable is you developing your ability to endure any behavior, and I'm not talking about physical violence, which we'll discuss later, but you're not taking things personal. And I wouldn't recommend picking your battles, as you can compromise your standards by letting certain things slide, but there are ways to hold students accountable, and more importantly, higher power ways students will be held accountable. I do recommend you watch my video about the fallacy of picking your battles. What I do not see many people talk about is nurturing their teacher personality. I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're 1 part educator, 2 parts performer. If you have the personality of an introvert and scared of people, well, newsflash again, that's fresh blood for students and they will eat you alive. On the opposite extreme, if you're too extroverted, you could be endangering yourself by breaking boundaries, and if students see you as a friend rather than someone to respect, then prepare to be disrespected. I have a video on that as well if you take a look right here. What I've learned is that content means nothing if you can't get a student's attention, and to do that, they have to take you seriously. Now, I can only speak for me, but when I'm presenting information, I become pretty animated. I crack jokes, not inappropriately, but I bring in a whimsical sense of humor that's not roasting, but professional enough to where the students still get a laugh from me. My father-in-law once shared that when he taught in the juvenile detention centers where young men were jailed for the most heinous crimes as a young age, he was in a classroom with prisoners all by himself. And you want to know how he really made it through those sessions unscathed? All he had was his personality, his ability to get those identified as criminals to like him, and of course, the Lord Jesus. While I've confessed my faith a bit in this video, I understand that everyone can't get past God using man to write the Bible. Therefore, they don't believe because the good book didn't arrive on earth, falling like a comet from the sky, landing as a crater untouched by human hands. But whatever your beliefs are, you have to have a foundation. Only time will tell how solid that foundation truly is. And trust me, the students will let you know if your house is built on sand or on concrete. And admin will not send any search and rescue when it comes crumbling down. All right, truth number 4. No one is an island. Other teachers, my band of merry men and women, are what keep me coming back to work. Yes, the students are okay, but times are not like what they were when I went to school in the 90s. I remember there was a deadline for students not to transfer across the city growing up when I was younger in Chicago. After the second or third week in September, transfers were over and there was no late enrollment. And that's simply not the case today. Those students that you've built upstanding bonds with are here today, gone tomorrow due to home situations. I don't put a lot of stock in student relationships in that regard. The relationship has to be good enough so you can reach in and teach the student. That's all. Oh man, but your colleagues? Chances are you are in it for the yearly loan call with them. I strive to show myself friendly to all people, still not expecting a courtesy to be reciprocated, but I want them to know that I extended my hand if they desired an on-site partnership to be formed. It's those bonds that have carried me through tough times and given me something to look forward to work with. Some people I hang out with to this day after work discussing what else? Education, baby. I've known others who have found strength in numbers teaming up to help students succeed, but also keep each other from becoming alcoholics. Sometimes this works out, while other times it doesn't. Some people will tarnish your reputation or be snake-like, hoping to slither into your personal space to throw you under the nearest bus, picking up the worst students. Many teachers isolate themselves because they find out that they hate teaching, which therefore their colleagues become casualties of their hatred, burning unnecessary bridges. Others just simply wither away in depression, coping with pill bottles rather than with people who may possibly just lift them up. While I'm not dependent on people for my success, I am dependent on people for my success. Allow me to explain. Those people I have befriended have poured back into me, making my job easier, whether it's agreeing to coverage when I need it or assignment assistance. Yet, I'm not dependent, meaning that I'm expecting people to do these things for me just because I've been polite and giving over the past few times. Again, my efforts are not based on transactions or reciprocations. But I'm no fool, and it would be silly of me to think that any wins I experience are all my own. We can gloat and delude ourselves into believing a girl boss fairy tale that we're doing it independently, but it's just not the reality. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor, for if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him that is alone when he falls, for he has not another to help him up. Build a team, get on the roster. Even Gilligan had a squad for not only survival, but to thrive and make the best for what could be an isolated scenario. Truth number 5. Treat teaching like the NBA or NFL. I see my career in education similar to how Jordan or Kobe approached the NBA. When we look at their career history and how they worked on their craft, they practiced the things that would win them championships. And when they practiced, it was before and after working hours because they knew what the mission was.
We were playing against the Lakers, Tom, and we were out here in LA. So the game was at 7. So, I'm going to get there at 3 o'clock. And I want to make sure I make 400 made shots. Get there, and as I'm walking onto the court, who do I see? I see Kobe Bryant, already working out. So I worked out for a good hour and a half. And when I came off, after I was done, I sat down, and of course I still heard the ball bouncing. I looked down, I'm like, this guy's still working out. In that game, he drops 40 on us. And after the game was over, I'm like, I have to ask this guy, like, hey, Kobe, like, why were you in the gym for so long? He's like, because I saw you come in, and I wanted you to know that it doesn't matter how hard you work, that I'm willing to work harder than you.
I don't complain about any late nights or working on the weekends. Lesson preparations and perfecting activities is, for me, akin to Kobe Bryant training to win a championship. You'll hear stories from his previous teammates. I think Iman Shumpert actually had an account for this, but the Lakers would go out to party, but Kobe would still be just practicing for good reason because he knew what the mission was. So while they're partying, he's spending like an extra 2 hours, 3 hours just in the gym working on his game, which kept him 3 steps ahead of not only the competition, but his teammates as well. Heck, even during regular training hours, if the required training is just 2 hours a day, Kobe is doubling that to rep certain exercises that intelligently contribute to improving his game. Most people enter teaching without a personal vision, not the school's vision, but their own. The problem is that many teachers employed are simply doing this for a paycheck. And I'm sorry, but this is not a paycheck profession. You're coming here to affect many students who unknowingly depend on you. Notice that I had said Kobe reps certain exercises to intelligently improve his game. Now, many teachers wastefully spend a lot of late nights at their campus because they're spending a lot of energy, wasted energy on the wrong things, when they should be spending on things such as perfecting their systems and really mastering their classroom operations. And we have to ask the question, what is going to move the needle forward and in my craft, and what is going to be relevant to my teaching experience? And third-party sources will have you doing the most irrelevant things, which cause teachers to feel overwhelmed and find the nearest exit in the first place. Keep this in mind. Discernment is key. You do not have to stress about responding to every email or trying to adhere to every request that comes your way. Here are the game day things that matter: classroom management, building relationships, raising standardized test scores, exercising the grading policy appropriately, classroom systems, operations, and procedures. Those are the things that matter. At the beginning of the school year, I never worry about wall decorations or designing my actual room. That's an irrelevant classroom focus. Well, at least it should come later. Here are some questions I stress over. Okay, when should students use the pencil sharpener? What should I do when technology fails in my classroom? How should my paper submission process look like? How can I outsource grading? How can I leverage student assistants to remove most of the work from me? What kind of incentive system should I have in my classroom? What does that look like? How can I format my instruction for engagement, understanding, and learning? These may seem like simple questions, but they address heavyweight procedures that should make life a lot easier. Time has to be invested in front loading. You do a lot of upfront work in the beginning of the school year to ensure that the remainder of your year turns out splendid. It's the nature of the beast. I believe there's been way too much passive income talk online, appealing to people's primitive mind of lots of money for very little work. Yet, that's not how life functions. Whether the work is done at scale in the beginning or little by little over time, the fact remains that there's work and skills to acquire. Teachers also don't invest in their own education. And I'm not talking about district-provided professional development training where you're voluntold to attend at majority of the time. I'm actually talking about studying the craft, examining real master teachers who have ironclad structures that represent you to be a superior expert. I mean, honestly, students can sniff out people who do not know what they're doing and whose confidence has abandoned them. When I talk, I speak with authority, and I always address the agenda for the day, if not the entire week. I speak with conviction. Children need to know that they can feel secure with you, and a person with a plan of action that, as the young folks say today, stand on business, is someone worthy of their respect. Stuttering, acting like you're scared, presenting that you do not want to be there in the classroom, are best practices for yelling, "I'm defeated." Here's a gaming community expression. Get good. Invest in yourself. People complain about standardized testing, but even that can be used to your advantage. If you're clever, you do not have to teach the test, but leverage a school-provided mission and goal to be your own. I'm going to make sure my English classes raise their scores by 7 questions. They struggle with vocabulary and summarization? I'll use interactive learning to stress more abstract points through Kahoot and other gamification, but set aside time for building their stamina reading without all the stimulation. And if I'm really feeling froggy, I'll dress up as a hobo with the vocabulary words strapped to my chest and act out the definition. Those may seem like very absurd examples, but I think you really get the point here. You have to do what's necessary by any means necessary to see the success that you want in your classroom. Get over any personal embarrassment or the other things. You have to be able to do things outside of your comfort zone. And stop waiting for these great conditions to work under. Create them because creativity is on your side. All right, truth number 6. Documentation is your friend. This reality supplements not waiting for admin to swoop in with a cape to save your day. Documentation is for your protection and not the students. Not only should you write referrals, but you should also keep a private journal of events that may be lost mysteriously because, technology. When you document unsavory situations caused by students, divorce your expectations of kids receiving consequences. Stop seeking this personal revenge when students hurt your feelings. When we feel wrong or disrespected, we want to become Steven Seagal and go out for justice until we put Richie in a pine box.
Anybody seen Richie? Huh? I'm gonna keep coming back until somebody remembers seeing Richie.
You gotta let that go. Students may never receive the consequences you think they deserve. And when they return to your classroom, and trust me, they will, how will you respond to their re-entry back into your culture? Man, what's that? What's that serenity prayer? God, grant me the serenity to control the things I can and can't, and to understand the difference between the two. Some of us get emotional because our expectations were not met on how we think students should be dealt with. It's not right. It's just not right. Yo, go insane trying to be the virtue police. While students should be held accountable, you have no control over that. Man, I remember when I worked as a manager at Walgreens. Customers who felt they received shoddy service from an employee would morph into this Karen type requesting my presence. I would show up, the customer would tell me what happened, and I would assure them that we would correct the mistake. Problem was, these customers wouldn't leave until I served my employee's head on a silver platter to them. And mistake correction wasn't enough. These people would stand there awaiting me for me to punish the employees right in front of them, whether it was a verbal reprimand or write-up threats, just to appease and validate their emotions. You know, make them feel like justice was served. And you know what? I didn't give these customers the satisfaction, often telling them that I don't do public executions and employee matters are done privately. I refuse to embarrass people I have to work with long after these one-shot customers have disappeared, never to be seen again. As teachers, our emotions get in the way of many things, which causes us to say things that will incriminate us later or do things to just make us regret actions in the heat of the moment. Paper trails are our best line of defense. In a great cosmic order, if you're patient enough, kids who say in their heart that I'm going to hurt this teacher, whether physically or emotionally, will receive their due justice. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, if thy enemy hunger, feed him, and if he thirst, give him drink. For in doing so, thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. I take pleasure and rest in knowing that I do not have to try and fight my battles, guided by a higher power on what to follow up on and what not to. There is no guessing, but discerning on how to move. There was a student who was combative with me. My emotions were triggered, but the spirit on the inside said, calm down and look with the student. Suddenly, I noticed the disability and understood that the combativeness may have stemmed from a deeper rooted insecurity. Rather than fight fire with fire, I calmed down to feed the student with kindness, demonstrate humility so that they could stop for a moment to know I'm not their enemy. That was the hot coals heaped on their head part of that scripture I just quoted to you. Document as often as you can. Cover yourself by recording the stories that happened to you before a narrative is contrived by con artists. Truth number 7. Violence is here. I despise that this has to go on the list, but too many students are choosing violence. That is a sad reality. Violence should never be tolerated. While many truths on here can be navigated where you have a wonderful teaching career, this is one where if it arrives at your doorstep, you need to leave. I know teachers who took biting, slaps on the arm, kicks in the leg, and still decided to remain in education. Oftentimes, these are your elementary or SPED circumstances, which can be a bit different because usually the teacher knows the environment they're walking into and the condition of the student. But in the gen ed secondary population, there's no excuse. And we see footage of middle and high school students punching teachers, oftentimes sending them to the ER. Have you not seen Lean on Me? At my former school, I knew it was time to leave because this sort of violence inched closer and closer to my classroom. Now, while I managed my class pretty well, maintaining peace and serenity during my instructional time, the ensuing chaos happening on the outside started to creep in. Students that understood and respected my classroom procedures were adopting hallway behaviors, then entering my classroom thinking that I was going to let my guard down. But what did Negan say from The Walking Dead?
Don't any of you do that again. I will shut that shit down, no exception.
We received new students who didn't know me and didn't allow me the opportunity to establish ground with them. They started to make threats towards my well-being, and I am one that will not take threats lightly. I still maintained my position and foundation, not giving these stubborn hoodlums the energy they gave me, but the overall campus infrastructure was entering a war zone. And I mean, the safety everywhere was being compromised. I soon couldn't walk down the hall without arriving to a fight breaking out like some random battle in a role-playing game. Internally, I knew it was time to leave. I had all these signs and communications point me towards my exit to step out once the new school year rolled around. Now, I share this account with you because I don't tolerate violence towards myself, nor do I want to be engulfed in an environment that allows it without a plan in place to stop it. And my experience is not unique. There have been worse things to happen to other people, causing them to leave the profession entirely. Students are feeling a new confidence, aggressively standing up to teachers, refusing to work with outstretched hands, ready to reach out and knuckle up. I knew of a dyslexia teacher who was threatened by a student, and let me tell you, those kids picked the wrong one. But remember how I said no one was coming to save you? There's another truth that I didn't mention, and that's someone is always there to save the student. That's a very, very sucky truth. Someone will always be there to sympathize and protect their outlandish behavior, no matter how criminal it appears. This may be due to the laws and policies in place where admin can swiftly dish out punitive measures to adults, but not the child. Anyway, when the student made this threat, they attempted to attack the dyslexia teacher. The student missed, and the dyslexia teacher chased after the student, who made the road runner blush. This incident was reported to the front office, which was then sent downtown. Downtown made a statement that professionals need to be professional at all times, and we need to do what's in the best interest of the child. So we know where this story is going. Needless to say that when I walked into the building the next day, I realized that the dyslexia teacher was gone. I was told that this person was placed on administrative leave, but eventually they were quietly excused altogether. Schools are masters of not making a huge commotion when they want to remove a teacher and any trace of their existence from the premises. As much as I don't care for why I quit teaching videos, they are correct on how barbaric students are acting in order to buck authority and get what they want. Those videos serve as a precaution, a warning to outsiders considering a career in education. But that's what this entire video is about. Rather than to reject the reality and fight against it, one can accept it and navigate the classroom indefinitely. I want to continue to teach and entertain you beyond YouTube through my mailing list, as I mentioned earlier, titled The Teacher Show. There are things, again, on YouTube I can't talk about, as some topics could jeopardize my job and future career prospects, but in a setting I can control, I can offer information diving deeper on what is making education so cancerous. Become an audience member and enjoy the show in the pinned comment below. And I'll see you in my personal side.